It's a blessing to have you here. One of my taglines I use from the series called The Chosen is get used to different. So this will be a different brand of Christianity than you've seen before, I hope, which will hopefully be invigorating, encouraging, and not only informative, but transformative for you. It's just not come to lunch. It's to learn, really basically unlearn something and learn something and take it out and implement it into your life. It's really good. So I got a couple slides, CBMC, and you ready for this? We have our first corporate sponsor. Michael Armstrong, come on up. He's with Corporate Chaplains of America. And this guy is good. We found we have some things in common, not only cowboy boots, but a few other things. But he actually gave us money to help run this whole thing.
Thank you, Stan. No, I met Stan recently, and before I had the meeting, I was asking my friends, do y'all know Stan Bauer? Is he the guy with the cowboy hat and the cigar? I said, yes, that's the guy. We love that guy. And so Stan and I met, and then after we talked for about an hour, I knew that I wanted to be a part of whatever he's doing in this city and in life. So I asked if we could sponsor, so thanks for letting us do that. Just real quick, some of you know Corporate Chaplains of America, some of you don't. It's a nonprofit, 28 years old. We just provide chaplains in the workplace. Now, in this room, that may not scare you, the word chaplains, but out in the real world, some people call us care coaches, right? Because outside this room, there are millions of people in DFW alone, employees, people that you know, they're just completely alone. We've got cell phones, we've got social media, but nobody has anybody. And everybody's carrying the weight of the world on them, depression, anxiety. We know the truth and where those issues come from, but they don't have a place, they don't have an outlet. We provide care in the workplace. In fact, our logo, our motto is, we provide caring relationships with the hopes of gaining permission to share the life-changing good news of Jesus Christ in a non-threatening manner. That's what we do. So if you own a business, work at a business, know of a business that could use care in the workplace, come find me. I'll be here. I'll hopefully be at every event from now on. You guys enjoy the rest of the day. I'll be in the back. Thank you, Stan.
No, you can't go just yet. Listen.
Oh, all right.
Has a fascinating background. So what musical band were you with for a long time?
Well, when I was at A&M, Chris Tomlin was my roommate. We traveled together for almost a decade before he became Chris Tomlin. And So
now, what else did you do? There's one other fact you told me that was like amazing.
I can't remember all the facts I told you. I've done Christian. I've been Mercy Me, Passion, Breakaway. I was in country music for a while. Traveled with an artist. What are you talking about, Stan?
I'm talking about my next Cowboy Perspective, my house. You're bringing your guitar.
Oh, my guitar?
And we're going to have some fun at our house.
We'll do it.
At the Cowboy Perspective,
We'll
September
do it.
24th.
We'll do it.
Well, thank him so
Thank you,
much,
Stan.
Michael
Thank you, guys.
Armstrong.
Enjoy your lunch.
I mean, you can imagine Chris Tomlin, he was his roommate at A&M, and he's an Aggie? I mean, figure that out. Okay. Hook'em schnook'ems, you know what I mean. All right. Confluence. This is different. So confluence is technically where two or three rivers come together, they merge. It's called a confluence. So you have rapids and upheavals and this. So in the sea of people that we have from all over the world in Dallas, we're all running together, bumping each other. So it's also a meeting. So this is a confluence. It's different, okay? It's not a networking per se. It's not a leadership institute deal. It's a confluence. So invite a guy to come with you to the confluence next time, okay? Who doesn't know anything about Jesus Christ, and we'll find out what happens to him. All right, next thing, what is CBMC? CBMC stands for Connecting Businessmen to Christ. We have a purpose that every guy here and woman will end up with a personal, intimate relationship with Jesus Christ and foster that relationship for his entire life. Because that, you know, we may have 80 years down here, but yet an eternity with Jesus, or if you're not with him, you're dying and burning in hell. And we got to stop that avalanche going to hell. It comes to you doing it. You're the point of the spear in the marketplace. You are. Not the pastor, not the teacher. You are. That's the whole point about Christian businessmen's connection. And the other thing we do is that every man become a disciple maker. So that's what Phil and I do. We disciple men one-on-one in small groups. Now, I don't care if you have a PhD in theology, if you've never done one-on-one discipleship, you've never been discipled. You may be able to teach 1,000 people to whack at a university, but once you get inside to a man's heart and he shares his heart, you see the depression, the sadness, the fear, the frustration. One of my dear friends that was here before, about 2 weeks ago, committed suicide. Clark Hamilton. And I spent 3 years with him. And we've talked about what had happened. And it's sad. And I know you men as businessmen are carrying a load to provide salaries, overhead, the wife, the kids, the church. You can't go it alone, and that's why CBMC is here to help you not go it alone in this world of hurt. The vision is we're going to win the lost, disciple the saved, and go forth into the world. We're going to multiply this ministry, okay? What's our next slide, please, Chase? Young professionals. So Phil Carlson's been with me. He has an MDiv from SMU. Quite a guy. He's pretty good brain trust.
Don't hold that against me, please.
And Philip means lover of horses. And that's where he wears the cowboy hat and boots. And he's smarter than I am, so listen to him.
I don't know about that, Stan. Well, with young professionals, we work with men in the business world who are 40 and younger generally. The fact is, most of these guys, they're just trying to get things started. They're just getting married, just starting to have kids. They're just thankful that they keep their heads screwed on straight in the morning. And what we get to do is actually facilitate a meeting of the minds where these men meet up once a month for 3 hours, and they get to hear from another businessman who's actually been around the block, who's actually gone through some things. He has the battle scars to show for what it's looked like to be a faithful believer in the marketplace for decades and hasn't destroyed everything that God has put in his hands. But many of these men do have stories of where they did destroy some of the good, but they learned from it, and they pass on those lessons, and those lessons end up being life-changing. But at the same time, men end up getting connections for jobs. Men end up being able to find friends in that group that end up standing with them through some of the hardest times that come in life. And believe it or not, right now, you're actually sitting in a young professionals meeting right now. And you'd be surprised, you look around and you see some gray hair in the room. But we do this once a year. We actually bring together our currently 2 young professional groups, and they actually come to the Confluence, and that is their young professionals meeting. So right now, we've got representatives, men from our 2 different groups, one that meets in Plano here at the Hope Center once a month, and one that meets in Richardson once a month, both on the same day, second Thursday of the month. Both of these groups have room for other men. So if you are a man who's in the business world, or you know a young man who's in the business world, so you're 40 and younger, you want to grow, you want to learn, you want to hear from what is it God is saying to how you can live faithfully in the midst of everything you're dealing with in your life, then I encourage you, talk with me afterwards. Let's see if we can get you connected into one of our young professional groups. So thank you very much, Stan.
Sure. All right, young professionals. Now, October 12th, we're going to have a prayer breakfast with Chad Hennings. So we got room for 500 people. It's going to be October 12th, and it's going to be an evangelistic outreach. So you can buy a ticket. Michael Duffin's over here. Michael, stand up, please. Stand up, Michael. He represents it. Dean Lyles, Don Barr, you 3 guys stand up. They're all part of the team. You want a ticket, so you bring a seeker to this. Does everybody here know what a seeker is? That guy doesn't know. Sick him to come hear about Jesus Christ. That's the guy we want at the prayer breakfast. It's going to be a great time. We're going to do some prep work for this, which I talk about. But see those 3 men. It's an outreach. Be a corporate sponsor, whatever. It's, we're trying to make about $100 over cost. Bring a guy who has no hope. That's what we're looking for, okay? Bring a guy who has no hope. All right, so that's the Q&R card for that. So go to the next one, please. So we're going to do something different. So last month I started the Way Station right here at the Hope Center. So this will be next Friday at noon, but we have to get a different location because they're booked. It's going to be at the Drawing Board at 1900 J. Elliott Drive, Richardson, Texas. So what you see on your desk, we're going to take you through 4 weeks of teaching you or sharing with you the evangelical process, how God from Scripture taught us what to do and how to do it to reach lost people. So on your desk, everybody has one. Get that 10 Most Wanted card. You got a pen in your hand. There's 6 on each table. So what you do is you write down the name of one seeker, one lost guy, a vendor, a boss, a wife, a child, whatever it is. Write down one name. Yeah, John, well, write it down. One guy's name. You pray for him every day. Get your pen out, get a guy, write it down on there, one guy's name that you know that you see every week. This is not some guy that's down in Africa or South America. Some guy you see every week, and you go have coffee with him. You see what's going on in his life, and you pray for him because we don't want him to die and go to hell. So this is what we do. And then right here, right underneath that, is Steps to Peace with God. It's just a little booklet to take a guy to the steps to peace with God. It's real simple. It takes 7 minutes. You change a man or a woman's eternity. That's what we're about. Now, we got 4 dates. That's going to be September 16th, September 23rd, September 3rd, October 7th. And then October 12th, you bring that guy to the prayer breakfast. You buy his ticket. Well, that's going to cost me money. Yeah, evangelism takes time and money. You don't do, it's not free. The message is free, but the messenger isn't. It costs money to fund what we do. I mean, get over yourself. You know what I mean? Burn a little money on somebody else for once. But this is what we're trying to do. Have fun with it. But just think about it. Change a guy's eternal destination. It's unbelievable. So we're doing that. That's there. Now, on the desk right there, Rob, hold up that little the plastic thing. Hold it up high. Right there, if we don't have your name and number, there's a QR code on it. Take your photograph, get it. It just calls for your basic information. So if you don't have it, you got it right there. It's simple. It'll take you a few minutes. Go to the next one, please, sir. So we're going to be doing this. It's called Living Proof Adventure. That's the process. Just 4 weeks. It'll take us 45, 50 minutes a session. Boom, bang, boom. Okay? We'll be through it in 4 weeks. And go to the next one, please, sir. Oh, man, this is going to be fun. I got so many stories about him. Dr. David Ferguson, I met him, I think, in 86 and 87 at the CBMC in Hunt, Texas family camp. And he was the keynote speaker. And he started speaking all these relational needs things and emotional capacities. And every word he said, I hung on. I've never heard a man speak like that before because I was never accepted by my father. And he was speaking to that deep, deep wound which caused all my anger that I gave to my wife and my family. I mean, I was a terrible guy, okay? Terrible. And he spoke. So after we do this for 4 or 5 days, Paul David Rathkamp says, did God share anything with you this week? So you get up and you share. This is what God did with me in this. You know what I did for 10 minutes with David Rathkamp? I cried in his arms for 10 minutes in front of about 100 people. He hit my pain. And Laura knew I had a problem, so she said, get fixed. So we started the process back then called Intimate Encounters. He wrote the book, he and Teresa, they're over there. This is the workbook I took a church through 1 whole year going through it. This is the top 10 relational needs. You hear about that. I couldn't find my original book that you signed because it's buried somewhere. I don't know what I did with it. Now, this is a funny story. So we're going to the couples intensive. Now, what I'm telling you cost me $2,000. Okay, $2,000. So if you buy into this, you owe me 10% of that money. He's not inexpensive, but he's good. You know what I mean? So we go to the couples intensive, and we're in Austin at the Lakeway or something like that. We got 3 couples we know and us, right? And he says, Stan, how you feeling? And I say, fine. He says, Stan, fine's not a feeling. You know what that means? I said, no, sir. He says, fearful, insecure, neurotic, and evasive. I said, okay. He's been around the horn. He's done a good work. He's a dear friend. I've been on the couch with him and his wife, Teresa. They're wonderful people. In fact, I told him, come on up, Dave, one more story about you. I saw Teresa, they're in the car coming up. I said, now, Teresa, we're done at 1:15, so I'll be in session with you at 1:16. She said, bring it on. It's hilarious. So come on up, Dr. David Ferguson. Give him a hand, everybody.
Thank you, Stan. Good to be with you, man. Good to be with you. That's quite a lot to live up to, but we'll see.
Oh, it's easy for you.
It's always good to hang out with you.
He's gifted. He's gifted. I want to tell you. So, how did you get from being a true blue psychologist and then intimate encounters and going to where you are now? What's the transition? What happened to you?
Well, first of all, you need the transition just to talk about, probably anything I know is kind of doing a crash course of all things wrong, okay? So after having run away from home when I was 15 with a couple of my friends to California, we wanted to go see the beach Boys have been singing about, all right? Now, not many of you know what I said about Beach Boys, but there's a few in here that do that. And so got thrown in jail the first night, and they flew my father out to get us out of jail, retired military. He's actually a Marine drill instructor. So they flew Master Sergeant out, drive us back to Texas. And on the way back, he's lectured me for thousands and thousands of miles. And the only thing I remember was, now, David, when you get home, no, he never called me David. My title was Son. My little brother's was Son 2. You can imagine what that did to him. Son 2, come here. He says, son, when you get back to Texas, whatever you do, don't get serious about girls. I'm thinking, you're a 15-year-old rebel. Somebody tells you not to do it. You got to what? You got to do it. So about 2 months later, I had skipped school, and I was having to stay after school, and I met my wife, Teresa, 15 years old, and a year later, in rebellion, we got married.
That sounds like a mess.
That was a mess. And so first night of the honeymoon, one of my old California friends knocked on the door and says, hey, let's go shoot pool, and then we can have a few drinks. No problem. This is on her honeymoon. She's still asleep.
You're on your honeymoon?
Oh, yeah, on the honeymoon.
You talk about stupid.
Yeah. And I thought, well, she's still asleep. And so we went and played pool. She woke up. There's no husband. There's no note. So she had to walk 8 blocks home. Now, that's how we started our marriage relationship.
What did she say to you when she found you again?
I don't think she said anything. I think I said something stupid like, I probably shouldn't have done that. Let's go. Or something like that. So anyway, that got us in a journey after coming to follow Jesus in our early 20s during the Jesus movement. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I figured out I need to keep going to school. I'd done work in nuclear physics, computer science. So I went back to school in counseling to try to figure her out. It takes a lot to figure these ladies out.
Not yourself, but her.
No, you got to figure her out. Only to realize that I needed to be the one that got figured out.
Oh, okay.
So it's been a good journey. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So we try to help a few folks not go through a lot what we went through.
How long have you been married?
We have been married now 59 years.
That's a miracle.
And she still hangs around with me, too. It's a miracle.
Yeah, that's great. You got any kids?
Kids, yes. Kids. 2 daughters, son. 2 daughters work with us, have for years and years and years. Son's a personal fitness trainer, all live in Central Texas.
You live in Austin?
I live in Austin, bunch of grandkids, few great-grandkids, as a matter of fact.
Okay, good. So, I originally thought we were going to talk about intimate encounters, emotional healing, and husband and wife, but he's doing something totally different, and it threw a curveball to me. I'm going, you doing what? What is this? I was going to get a couch up here. I was going to lie down and say, Dr. Ferguson, fix me in front of these 55 people because I need help. And I'm not ashamed because I need help. It's okay. But anyway, he started this Relational Values Alliance. What is that? What
yeah,
is
thanks,
this?
Ben. Yeah, about 20 years ago, even though trained in psychology and theology, we began to find that these same biblical principles not only work in marriage, but they work in any relationship.
Okay.
And so this Relational Values Alliance, I think we got a slide that kind of describes it, where we basically are taking some really key truths and we begin to help people experience them. And we're going to talk about some of those called relational values or relational needs. And they begin to experience them, and then we help them reproduce them. And that's actually why you have this little handout there on your table if you want to pick it up. Everything we designed is for you to experience something. We'll do a little bit of that today here in the room.
Okay, Bruce, do you have one of these?
Yeah,
Mark?
get you one of these. We're going to use it here in a few moments. And It's got these magic things called QR codes on it, which we're going to show you a couple of videos if we got time. And you can actually take this back to your place of work, business, organization, and reproduce what we're doing. So we're kind of into experience it and reproduce it. I think you probably call that discipleship, but that's kind of what we do. And we started doing this in different parts of the world, South Africa, and the Middle East, and Europe.
You did some in England, right? Now,
Yes.
do you have a slide on this that you want to show, the first slide?
I think we've got a slide. Yeah, we've probably got one. I think we probably have a short video that will describe what we call relational values. Just like we need air, food, and water, you need other things. And let me introduce this by saying earlier you had used the word, and your chaplain friend used the word, there's a whole lot of aloneness out there in the world today. And if you'll think about it, that becomes the root of a lot of things like anxiety, depression. It ends up being a big part of suicide attempts. Mm-hmm. And one of my first theological challenges actually at the Bodleian Library at Oxford was to realize that the first human crisis in the Bible was not sin. It was when God said it's not good to be alone. And if there's anything we ought to learn out of the pandemic, that's what we're learning. It's not good to be alone.
Well, we were in some teaching or training with him or intimate encounters, and he first shared, I think it says 7 times in this one, it was good, 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 good. Then he comes to 2:17 in Genesis. He says it's not good for man to be alone. That's the first time God said it's not good. That hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
So go on.
It's a lot of people. And so how do you get less alone? The way that happens is in community or in relationship, as we actually connect with one another through what biblically we would call the one another's of Scripture. What you're about to see are things like accept one another and encourage one another, support one another. And we just use the word relational values, so it works in the workplace, works in schools, and so forth. So watch this little video, and it'll tell you a little bit about what we call relational needs.
We all have physical needs, like eating, sleeping, and breathing. But we also have unique relational needs, like acceptance, attention, and respect. It's just part of being human. Understanding relational needs is the first step toward closer, more meaningful relationships. That's why we've developed the Relational Needs Assessment. This assessment will provide insight into the top 3 needs that matter most to you. Consider who else you might invite into the assessment and explore one another's relational needs together. Much of who we are is shaped by the relationships in our lives. Let the Relational Needs Assessment help you discover a little bit more about who you are and how you relate to those around you.
So that's a little bit of what relational needs are. And then we apply those across these dimensions of culture, if you will. I think we got a slide. Well, we started applying those, like you said, at home. So what does it look like in a marriage to meet the need? My wife's key needs are things like security.
Acceptance.
Acceptance. What does that look like? And then we talked about what does it look like to apply those in schools. We have a lot of work now in school systems, both at the elementary level, the middle school, high school, and college level. And then what does it look like in the faith community? We've got a team that does still a lot of that with pastors and others. But what does it look like in the workplace? And that's actually where most of our team spends a whole bunch of their time. No offense, but we call that the real world, which is sometimes not what pastors live in, let's say.
Right.
So we spend a lot of time in the workplace with different.
So you're submitting to us, we all have emotional needs, right?
That's exactly
and
right.
most of them are ignored, especially when we're young children.
And so we end up being alone.
Right. So I got to interject this process.
Yep. Self.
The best movie I've ever, one of them on discipleship is What About Bob? You have never seen this, but it's a great spiritual movie. And Bob is talking to Dr. Leo Marvin, and he's gotten off the bus, and he shouldn't have gotten there and come back. And he says, Dr. Leo Marvin, I need, you know, and it's just, he's just hurting for needs. So you have a couple other slides to speak about this. I love that. You got to watch it sometime and see it from an emotional and spiritual connotation. It's profound. So go on.
Yeah, it might be helpful. I think we got a slide of again, what we might call the top 10. These are pretty universally true. We started doing a lot of work in this in post-apartheid South Africa. It did not really matter in the Middle East. Didn't matter whether you're from a Muslim, Christian, Jewish background. You've been wired to need things like respect or acceptance. We may say the word differently. It's communicated differently, but it's the same need, right?
Do you need to see the slide or go through it at all? Stand up?
Well, the way I'm going to do it is actually have people do a little quick assessment. You have another piece of paper on your paper there, and on your table you got this piece of paper. It's called Creating a Culture of Motivation, 10 Keys to Motivation. If you've got something to write with on there, we're going to actually have you do this real quick. And here's one way to do this. You could do this back in your organization, your workplace. It says you work around people. I wonder what their key top need of those 10 is. And here's an easy way. Let me kind of talk you through these. This is what we call motivation. How are you best motivated? So let me kind of walk that through with you really quick. In other words, that first one. Some of you are likely motivated by people's personal thanks when they celebrate with you what you have done for them, okay? That's how you are motivated. That you get a lot of thanks, gratitude. Number two, maybe you're motivated by someone making time with you. Our mutual friend, Jim Walter, this was his top one. I'd be traveling, he'd come back and he says, you know, hey, David, it'd mean a lot to me if you just come down to my office and just hang out with me. Just see how am I doing. As you know, he's got 5 kids. They were always doing something.
Yeah.
He just wanted me to make time for him. Some of us are motivated by number 3, genuinely care about our relationship. They genuinely care about it. They communicate, hey, you mean a lot to me. You're a great friend. Some of us are motivated by this idea of number 4. They give me freedom to be myself. Our art director, a lot of techie people, artsy people. It's like, give me the freedom to do my own thing. The worst thing you can do with me is to give me a half-filled out piece of paper. No, I want a blank piece of paper. I want the freedom to be myself. See, they're motivated in different ways. Are some of y'all getting this? All right, number 5. Acknowledge my uniqueness and affirms my strengths. In other words, don't just look at what I accomplished. Understand who am I. Do you know there's a difference between what you do and who you are? That's miraculous in the Western world, but there really is. And so some people are motivated by noticing that you're real diligent. You have been for decades, ever since I've known you. See, that's affirming who you are, Stan. Some of us are motivated by involve me and include me in decisions. I've got another one of our team members. Man, the worst thing you can do, my friend Joseph, is to make some decision or plan or schedule for his life before you talk about him first.
Hey, Doc, that's my wife.
I know, mine too. You know, this whole guess who's coming for dinner never seemed to work. Right?
I get shot down every time.
I know. So some people are motivated by that one. Number 7, provide me with clear objectives and caring feedback. I think you know Dr. Lewis Alexander on our team. That's his key need. He said, give me boundaries. This guy come in and say, give me feedback on how well I did on that. I'm thinking, this guy's asking for feedback? That motivated him. He wanted to know if he was in the right path.
He wants to know if he's tracking.
If he's tracking. That was weird to me. That's the last thing in the world I need. I don't want people telling me I'm not tracking. I want a clean sheet of paper. Number 8, provides messages of you can do it. All right? It's somebody that cheers me on, man. This is actually my daughter Robin. She wants you to encourage her.
Now, what emotional need is that?
Well, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to give you the key to it in a minute.
Okay.
Now, in just a minute, I'm going to ask you which of these is yours.
Okay.
All right.
I got the wrong list.
I'm going to give you the page. You're going to have to answer it. All right. Now let's see. Number 9, expresses care and concern for me as a person. That one's kind of strange. This is actually my son Eric. My son Eric is a personal fitness trainer. Big old muscles, owns a gym. And about 2 years ago, he ended up having to fire an employee. Poor performance, unethical stuff, had to fire him. And my son walks around depressed for 2 or 3 weeks. He's feeling bad. He had to fire the poor guy. And I'm thinking, get over it, boy. The guy was a jerk.
That's a counselor.
Yeah, it's what I call that guy. That boy you fired, he needs slap therapy. He doesn't need counseling. He needs slap therapy. But my son just needed me to care that he was going through something really stressful for him. I learned something about my son through that experience. Number 10, they joins me in tasks or projects I am undertaking. In other words, these people actually like when you come and help them. I don't like people coming to help me. Leave me alone. Okay? But some people say, man.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, I am not surprised. So why don't each of you pick one of those, all right? Pick one of those. If you could only have one of them, which one would best motivate you, all right? Then I'm going to come back and ask you, because we're going to find that they correlate up here, all right? All right, which one do you think yours, Stan? You remember these? Which one do you think's yours?
Respect.
I started saying I already guessed it. You didn't have to guess.
Well, you've seen my chart 20 years ago. You know
Yeah,
me.
I still got your chart. Your chart's a
know.
classic, man. Yeah, your chart is a poster child of what not to be, I'm telling you. There's no telling what he may do.
He can tell me the truth. It doesn't bother me.
There's no telling what he may do. That's called a nervous head. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Any of you pick number one? Any of you pick number one? So that's probably correlated more closely with what's called appreciation. All right. How about number 2? Some of you, hey, spend time with me. All right. That's actually one of my wives. Spend time. Hey, notice. Hey, turn around and look at the hand right there. I believe that's your wife.
I
Notice
just spent
me.
2 weeks with her on a
Spend time with
vacation.
me. No, hey, that's kind of like you ate yesterday. Are you not hungry?
Yes, sir. I
Okay, don't
understand.
tell me 2 weeks ago I thought of her. All right, number 3, affection. Anybody like care for me? Yeah, of course, there's a couple of you. All right, that's all right. Number 4, acceptance. All right, see, that's my art director. Hey, accept my uniqueness. Okay, don't try to make me like you. Okay, accept my I may be a little strange, Austin, but accept me just the way I am. Okay, all right. Then we got approval. That is, I want you to see inside of me. See, how many of you had approval? I want you to notice my character. I want you to notice my diligence, my generosity, my compassion. Notice inside of me, all right, more than what I do.
What's that called?
That's approval.
Okay.
Your wife probably needs it too, I bet. All right, in other words, number 6. How many of you have number 6? There's usually a bunch of respect folks are in the room with business people. Sure. That is notice. Give me notice of my opinions, my ideas. Don't take me for granted. Security. Number 7 is really kind of security. That's what my friend Dr. Alexander wanted. Any of you have that one? All right, give me feedback, keep me on the path. Sure. And then, let's see, what do you got? Urge me on. Anybody doing that right? Urge me on, okay? Cheerlead me. Sure, we all need that. Number 9 is compassion. That's what my son needed. Big old muscle guy, fired this guy. And I'm thinking, all he needs me to say is, I'm really sorry you're going through that, Eric. And that big old muscle guy hugged me. I'm thinking, I think I hit the target right there. And then last one is support. Come alongside. Now, for some of you, again, those are Bible verses. Accept one another as you've been accepted by Christ. Honor or respect one another. Bear one another's burdens. Encourage one another unto loving good deeds. And the miracle of all this, Dan, is that these truths, when lived out, can transform people, whether they realize they're in the Bible or not.
We had personal experiences in St. Louis and Houston and here. One moment, Laura can correct me if I'm wrong, she'd been busting her tail, cooking, cleaning, doing stuff. I had a bunch of people over, in and out, this kind of stuff. And she was mad her wet hand, and she said, she's at kitchen, I think you said, I need appreciation. Wasn't that it? What was it?
Well, because this could help you with your ladies or whoever you deal with, but I didn't realize I was frustrated and angry and all that. I just didn't do that, and so, but I could tell that I didn't want anything to do with him. And so I was just bristling. And that night, we had done our intensive by then, and it occurred to me, I had done all these things for 3 days, kept the kids quiet, done all the food, all these guys were staying with us. I said, I just feel like I need a little appreciation. And instead of that fight that you get into that goes on and on and on, and you don't know what you're fighting about, he went, oh, okay. He said, Laura, I really do appreciate what you've done for me and us. And that was it. Psst, it was done. So
That's the story.
I just didn't want you to think I was bristling mad because I was cooking for people. It's because
Let me just draw one principle there, though, because this is really important. When these relational needs are met, which is what just happened by he appreciated you, great things, good things happen. When these relational needs go unmet, bad things happen, okay? We are created for carrying connections with God and other people, and when those don't exist, painful things happen. And we can talk a little bit about some of those painful things. If you don't mind showing them, you don't mind if I show them your emotional cup back in 1998?
No, that's fine.
Would that be all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Poster Boy's Emotions, okay, years ago. It's called the emotional cup. So I want you to notice this. This is actually a small part of your brain that's wired where your emotions are. It's called the amygdala, and that's actually where emotions accumulate. Okay, just like you have a memory part of your brain, you got the sensory. This is emotion. Now watch. Laura just gave an interesting thought. She said, well, I don't do anger. Well, if you don't do anger, you're kidding yourself. Because modern science and what's called PET scans, photo emission topography, we can see anger in the brain. You can see it. And so what happens is, watch, when these needs go unmet, Stan, so let's suppose that reach over to hold my wife Teresa's hand, she pulls away from me. Does that ever happen to any of you, Ben? No, you don't have to answer that. But if that has ever happened to you, that relational need for affection is unmet, what happens, you experience at the bottom of that cup something called hurt. Feel a little embarrassed, right? A little put down, rejected. But I promise you, a moment later, you actually feel angry. Two sides of the same coin. You see, I feel hurt for me. Guys, I'm rejected. But I feel angry, whether I say it or not, at her. So all of a sudden, emotions are accumulating. What happens a week from now when I think about Stan reaching over and taking her hand again? Another emotion.
I think rejection. I'm not going to go there.
That's fear. I fear it's going to happen again. I fear that rejection. So all of a sudden, this one experience of her pushing my hand away has caused hurt inside of me, a little bit of anger, and now fear it's going to happen again. Well, now, what if I retaliate? What if inside of me I say, well, you know, it'll be a cold day in a hot place before I do something nice for you, lady.
I said it differently.
I've cleaned this up a little bit on your behalf.
Okay.
And so now I feel guilty. There's a certain part of me that's kind of got a conscience that says, I shouldn't have done that.
I'm a sociopath. I don't have
Yeah, that's right. Well, no, that's the next one. That's condemnation. That's where you say, oh, it's all my fault. I am a sociopath, you know. So what happens is, guys and ladies, when these emotions accumulate, the painful ones, so we never call them negative because that means they're wrong. They're painful. It pushes out the positive emotions. Notice you've only got so much room in that little cup right there on that table. And when it gets filled up with hurt or anger or bitterness or resentment, guilt, condemnation, you don't have much room for positive emotions. That's why my wife and I got to a point 12 years into marriage where she looked at me one night after I'd said, Teresa, do you still love me? And she said, David, I don't feel anything for you. I just feel numb. What she's saying is, I don't have any room to feel love for you. I don't have a capacity. Well, what's the answer to that? Empty the cup. So that's really important behind what we're talking about today. Because when that cup starts overflowing, now, let me just say to all your friends here, Stan. Stan did not have all of these symptoms at the top, but maybe 80%. Okay, so there's a lot of symptoms that come out. I mean, you start losing sleep, okay? It causes you to be anxious. It'll cause you to be irritable, edgy, uptight, short-tempered. There's one of them up there. It causes you to be controlling. Now, Laura, that's when you got to put those things back in those CD sleeves, okay? Otherwise, you know, you're going to the bad place. See, we're overreacting now. That's where addictions come from. We escape into drugs, into alcohol. Modern day, we escape in computers. Have you ever watched around? My wife and I were in a hotel here. You watch these people that get in a computer in the elevator with you, and the last thing in the world they want to do is talk to you or look at you, so they're playing with their phones. They ain't doing anything on those phones. They're just escaping into that phone. See, we can escape into stuff, right? And some of the most painful ones up there, Stan, is that's where we get depressed. That's where we can be and entertain suicidal thoughts. The good news behind that painful picture that we could write Stan on if we needed to, the good news about that picture is if we can empty those emotions, two great things happen. Number one is the symptoms go away. And number two, you have more room for the positive emotions to come back. Now that's great news. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
And you're a living example of it, my friend.
I've been through that process. Yes, sir. So this what happens if we don't meet our relational needs. Everybody gets angry. That's where America is. So how is this part of what the relational values have, and what they have to do with people at work? So how did you get into that capacity with Relational Values Alliance and the company you've been working with?
Sure. Let me show you one other slide real quick. And this one is not of Stan, okay? But how many of you are parents, grandparents, okay? We need to understand what's happened to future generations. And we have the opportunity to do a better job of meeting these relational needs in the lives of our kids and our grandkids than maybe happened for us. Now, Stan, that's a powerful part of your legacy, is to start with where you started today, of what might have been very, very missed in your growing up, but to begin to say, hey, one of the most powerful things I can do for a legacy is to begin to give my kids, my grandkids, some of those relational values that maybe I missed. And here's why. One little brain scan. This is a picture of a brain scan. Very young child, normal, healthy child on your left. Those little red areas, that's healthy brain activity. Those neurons firing. Brain on the right, severely neglected, not held, not hugged, not sung to, not rocked, severely neglected. These relational needs going painfully unmet. Notice the lack of red. And then talking about our culture today. This is why we're in school systems. Notice those two circles up there? Notice those are totally missing of neural activity.
Yeah.
That's where impulse control is. Do we have an impulse control problem in our country? Yeah. That's where empathy is developed. Caring about other people. Do we have that problem in our country? Mm-hmm. This is why we have a heart to see this happening in workplaces, in homes, schools, and beyond. Now in the workplace. How do we apply this to the workplace? One of the places we apply it, one of the ways we apply it, and we'll not show this video, but you have it in here. We use a little training video from our friends at Chick-Fil-A. It's called Everybody Has a Story.
You sure you don't want to show it?
If we've got time, it's probably 3 minutes.
Show it.
Show it. Let's do it. This is a powerful, you ought to grab this one, take it back to your workplaces, because it's basically going to say this. Every person who walks in your place of business has a story, and they cannot check their emotional cup at the door. Can't do it. They bring it with them. And you can't check these relational needs at the door. They bring them with us. Okay. So this is a great bridge into the workplace, because the more a workplace can understand the opportunity we have to meet these relational needs in the workplace, we're going to be healing those brains, okay? And we're going to be emptying those emotional cups. That's what got us up into the workplace.
Okay, let's look at the video.
Let's watch it. you've ever noticed the difference at Chick-Fil-A, this is the mandatory video that every employee has to watch. Everybody walks in that store, everybody walks in our place of business, they have a story. Powerful, simple thing I might say, every one of those stories you could do one of two things with. You could either celebrate with them, think about that. Anybody you saw there you could celebrate with? Somebody free of cancer, right? Somebody got admitted to the college of their hopes, yeah. Or secondly, you give care to, right? You give care to. Simple thing. You would call it Romans 12:15. Rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. Simple way you take that into your workplace. Learn to celebrate with people. Learn to give care, okay? Now, how do we apply that in business?
Right.
Let me give you one example. How many of you would have an occasional team meeting in your place of work and business? You know, got a few people in the room, we got a good agenda to get to. Encourage you to take about 10 minutes. Let's say you got an hour. Take 10 minutes to have people share celebrations. Hey, anything positive, fun happening in your life, at home or here at work that you want to share with us? Anything positive, fun, enjoyable? And then let's celebrate together. Man, that's awesome. Glad you had that. Or secondly, anybody have a concern, a care? Somebody got a spouse who's lost a job, somebody going through health stuff with family members, whatever it is, let's give care. All of a sudden, we've connected that team, and then they're ready to more effectively deal with your agenda. So our team does a lot of corporate training with many different kinds of companies. They're always Christian-owned, privately businesses, Stan, over the years, from mortgage companies to banks and home building companies to...
Well, you've done extensive work with McCoy's Lumber Company. What does that look like? And you have some information about that and how it affected them.
That's probably our largest one over the years. And they have about 3,300 employees, about 100 locations, 5 states. And we've been training their folks for about 25 years.
25 years?
25 years, yes, sir.
So you've been through multiple ownerships of this thing.
Well, this is third generation of owners.
Okay.
But they've got, of these 3,300 employees, about 400 to 500 of them are management people. And how do you preserve a culture that's the same in 100 locations? That's a challenge. And so we do training in our building in Central Texas about 3 weeks of the month for 2.5 days for 25, 30 of those leaders at a time.
So you have a slide on here about everybody has a story, somebody cares in Bartow County?
Yeah, well, let me show you the McCoy slide real quick.
Okay.
When we started with them, their top line sales 20 years ago was $503 million. And they face some pretty stiff competition, if you understand the building supply field, with a couple of what they call big boxes, okay? And yet that slide over those 20 years has gone from $500 million to this year they'll hit almost $2 billion.
Wow.
So 4 times top revenue. Profits have matched that over the 20 years. And a lot of that has to do with innovative business plan, and secondly, what we call business as unusual training that communicates how to have a caring, connected team, develop a mentoring culture, deliver exceptional customer experience.
So what have you been doing there for 25 years? Give me a little nuts and bolts.
Yeah, we're doing everything from, again, think about these layers of culture. First of all, you want kind of a putting people first culture, so you want to actually make sure that we are prioritizing people through celebrating them, caring them. You want to put together kind of a team-led culture, all this based on really how Jesus led. He started by building a team, so team-led. A mentoring culture, very important today. We do a lot of work, for example, on how to mentor millennials and Gen Z. If you think about a company that the average manager has been there 27 years, and all of a sudden they start hiring 20 and 21-year-olds, there's a little difference. Some of you have noticed the workplace, and the reality is, and I'm not picking on Gen Z, but those generations are less and less relationally skilled than ever. And so if we don't communicate with them relational skills and equip them, there's no way they can deliver exceptional customer experience.
I asked you some questions yesterday, so you gave me some interesting facts about millennials and Gen Z. Is this the time to share that?
Sure, be glad to. Yeah, I guess, first of all, in the whole millennial Gen Z world, there's been some shifts over what brings them really to the workplace, what brings them passion about their job. And the three current research things from Harvard would be they're looking for a career, not just a paycheck. That's different for you and I. I mean, when I started work, all I was interested in, I want you to pay me, and if you can pay me in cash today, that's better.
Cash is king.
Yeah. They want a career. That's why they keep looking around. That's why they keep moving so much. It's not just they don't want a job, they want a career. Secondly, this is very important, they want a cause. They want a cause beyond just I work here, okay? That's why all those 100 McCoy stores, they have what's called social responsibility. They've got a cause out in the community, all right? In other words, they're involved in the cancer run. They're involved with the Boy Scouts. They're involved with the homeless shelter. They want a cause beyond making money, all right? And thirdly, this is probably the important one, they want what we would call community.
That's a dicey word today. We talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, they want a place where they can feel caringly connected. I mean, that's why you see all these tech companies with Starbucks in their offices, and we got foosball things over here, and we got stuff. I mean, we've got a video gaming client in Atlanta, and they've got they got slides in their building, and it's bizarre. Okay, but they're looking for connection. Okay, so when you and I took a break, we went to the break room and kind of shot the bull. These people are playing foosball and sliding down something in the middle of the building. I don't understand it, but they're wanting to, and they make a competition out of it. So they're looking for a cause, they're looking for a career, and they're looking for community. So that's a part of what we bring into the marketplace.
Tell me about, if it's time, about the retention rates, what you accomplished within McCoy.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. Again, the average tenure now of a manager is 27 years of the company. They have 500 of their employees who have been there longer than 20 years. Mm-hmm. So big tenure. They had a particular significant problem in turnover with their assistant manager training about 5 years ago because no fault of the millennials, but they were younger and they didn't just salute and do what they were told. Imagine that. And so they had a turnover rate after they'd invested about $90,000 into them of about 57% of them they were losing after 9-12 months.
Wow.
That's down to about 16% last year. So that savings of money more than paid for all the training they did to bring down that. So those are just a few examples.
Okay. So how could these, if we're ready in this, how can these leaders explore more about relational values in the workplace? Like slide number 11.
Yeah. Let me just say this. One of the things you have on your page, in addition to a few QR codes, is in the bottom left-hand corner. You've got a little thing. You've got a slide about flip books. You've got that little slide. It's got 4 of those guys up there. Does any of y'all in here even know what a digital flip book is? Come on, we got a few. All right, now we got.
I didn't know anything about it.
All right, so now one of the biggest things, you can get the Harvard Business Journal on your phone. And it's just a little flip book, and you flip it with your thumb just like you would turn a page. It's pretty miraculous, okay? And it's the common thing, sir. You can read the New York Times that way if you care to. I don't care to, but you can. So we've got...
That makes 50 of us.
All right, and so... So we put all of our training. Now imagine how this is in schools. You take something into a middle school, you do not have them walking around with printed curriculum. You put all this stuff onto their phone.
Okay.
So now they're taking all the inventories, they're watching all these videos that I just showed you on their phone.
Did you want to show this flip thing or what?
Well, I was going to tell you how they get it.
Okay.
There's a little QR code on there of this one at work. If they just want to do that QR code, they can download it. You can do it right now if you want to. It'll come magically right onto your phone. And then they can just flip through it if they want to. So that one's on there. It's free. If they care about, we actually do have a little resource page where they could get a hold of the other ones. So you can take one of these needs, like this one is support of support one another, and you can try that in the workplace.
Okay.
Just take that to your team meeting and say, let's have these conversations. I promise you, it'll be pretty impressive if you talk to your team, say, hey, get out those cell phones you're already fooling with anyway.
One last question, because I want to get open to the audience.
Sure.
If I miss something, you just spit it out. How else might these leaders engage in taking these ideas further into the home and in the workplace? Or is that what you said there?
This is a great way to do it there. And let me kind of cast a vision, since you've got this whole Confluence thing going on here. I think you've got a slide on there on somebody care. Everybody has a story and somebody cares. When you begin to take these relational values into the homes, into the schools, into the workplace, and into the faith communities, you can transform a whole community. Some of what we are doing now in a number of cities here in the U.S., where we're actually just taking that thought from the Chick-Fil-A video, everybody has a story. Remember all those people that came in there? Somebody is now free of cancer. Someone's got into college. Mm-hmm. And then you fix it with, and somebody cares. Bartow County, Georgia, Metro Atlanta. And about 70% of the faith community is involved in this. All the middle schools and high schools are going through this.
No way.
And we just finished our Chamber of Commerce quarterly meeting there with 500 in that one, largest ones they've ever had. Got 5 mayors involved, 2 state senators involved. And they're all doing basically the month of September, they're all doing let's learn about support. Month of October, we're going to learn about being approving culture, approving people.
Well, that's that. Before I get to the audience, when we had talked a month and a half ago or something like that, you said you're going to a conference for 3 days down in Austin, pulling people from McCoy's Lumber. Who'd you pull in, and what'd you do for 3 days?
That would have been regional managers. They have 9 of those, store managers from those regions, and we were working with them on basically their 2023 planning for next year.
So you did 3 days of this in Austin.
Yeah, and it includes things, you'd appreciate this, it includes what we call experiential teaching, so we're doing stuff and practicing skills. And then each person has a one-on-one coaching session, we call it. That's just a fancy word for counseling, but we changed the name so people don't get scared of it. But we have trained folks that do that, and then we have a small group meeting. Imagine these are redneck lumber guys, okay? And they're sitting around, talking about what they missed from their dads.
So this lumber company has just transformed it in their culture over 25 years. Think about it, 503 million to 2.3 billion.
Yeah.
How would you like to help your company do that, or your personal self, or your marriage? There's some keys to this whole thing. So what I'd like to do, we got a few more minutes. Phil, if you'd be kind enough to come up here. If you have a question you want to ask Dr. Ferguson, let her rip. He'll hold the microphone for you. And Phil, just ask questions.
Hey, Phil, where you might start, I never like to do this without doing what Stan was brave enough to do. Would you give the mic first time to my wife? There's no telling what cleanup she may want to do. All right, would you do that? And give her the opportunity to say whatever she wants. And folks,
stand up, Teresa, if we would, please.
This is pretty courageous right here, guys.
It's not about you.
Oh, good.
I do want to bring to your attention this page in the mother with the child. If y'all will download that and watch that, it will give you the biggest picture of what happens to us when our relational emotional needs aren't met. It'll break your heart, but it'll open your eyes too.
Yeah. A little video about a mother who interacts with a child, about 9 months old. Child's pointing and smiling, and then the child's called a still face experiment, makes no facial expression to the child. The child starts pointing. The child starts trying to get the mother's attention. And all of a sudden, the child starts melting down in the high chair because the child is feeling alone. Okay? And then the mom comes back to smile and all of a sudden bounce back. The amazing thing about those brain scans is that God has created us amazingly resilient. You heal those brain things by increasing your care for other people. So thanks for pointing that out, honey.
So we can be healed. Wherever you are, we can be
Well,
healed.
if you can, anybody can, sir.
You got that right.
That's right.
All right, ask a question, somebody. Come on.
Is there maybe a difference in how these relational values and needs are experienced or met for individuals who are, to use the PC term, neurodivergent? So people who have ADHD, autism, and whatever term you want to throw on it, people whose brains are wired and functioning differently from very early on in life. Is there a difference in how we do this with people who have those experiences?
I think one of the quick ways to say that I think you would identify with it is that part of what that initial neural wiring does is makes us kind of vulnerable or susceptible to different symptoms, right? In other words, you've used the words, autism as all right? But if you think about what we understand about addiction, similarly, okay? So is there some, if you will, brain predispositioning but this is important, how the symptoms come out? Yes. But the solution, in many ways, is very much the same, all right? For example, there's a lot of research that kind of almost overdosing autistic children with compassion actually is very, very helpful. A lot of research on ADHD, all right, which is always thinking, always doing. Well, what does always thinking, always doing mean? I mean, that's what he used to be. He's still got a little dose of it. But if you've ever heard about always thinking, always doing, what does that mean? I'm not feeling as much. Well, what if I opened up the feeling channel? Then you're not always thinking and always doing. So, yes, predisposition, yes, but solution's the same, all right? Don't be alone. Start increasing care. Great question. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Could you help us understand how you bridge from this to the fact that all these principles are rooted in Scripture and based on the Word versus just pop psychology?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of our team, we started our work in theology and psychology, which basically says if you think about approach of the sufficiency of Scripture, it would be to say everything we need to know to help human beings, we ought to be able to find it rooted in the Bible. That's our whole premise, okay? And so you start with that premise and you begin to mine out these principles like the one another's of Scripture. And then you actually have a conviction that all of our team does that these Bible truths will transform people when lived out, regardless of whether we cite the Bible references or not. Now that's pretty radical I come from a pastoral background too. That's pretty radical to a bunch of pastors to say, you mean to tell me that God's Word can heal people and I don't have to say, that was Romans 15:7. Well, you'll find it'll help you, your work in the world missionally to be able to see. We have a long story, but we have those same principles in a program that we helped start here in Texas called the Together in Texas program. It's a premarital education program. Invest about 8 hours premarital education, and it'll bring down the divorce rate about 30%. It's been going on for 19 years here in the state. We coordinate that work for a 31-county area. Every month, we have couples coming experiencing Bible verses. They don't know they're experiencing Bible verses. They're experiencing Bible verses, okay? And at the end of those days, they'll say, man, we feel closer to one another than we ever have. We've been more open to one another than we ever have. We've become more trusting one another. And then their question, which I think is a part of where you're rooted, where did this come from? Okay. Well, now you got the opportunity, what we would call give an account of the hope that is within you. Okay. So this has nothing to do with what we call pop psychology. Trust me. Anybody else? Great question. Thank you for that.
Kenneth.
I really just think what you said was beautiful about the how you described. Knowing the Word of God is important, but living it out and acting it from the spiritual transformation. to me, that means it speaks volumes, because the people who go out and live their lives are doers of Christ's word. And to me, it seems like that spiritual blessing is the transformation of the soul so that you can shine.
Yes.
And I just thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Let me just get a follow-up of that real quickly. If you follow research in what's called human flourishing, what makes human beings flourish? Track this with Harvard. Currently, Christian researcher David Kinnaman with Barna Research would talk about the dimensions of human flourishing, all right, which include our faith. But one of the most painful things that's happened over several decades is too oftentimes the church community has said, well, the only thing we care about is your faith. Well, how about my relationships? How about my home, my kids? How about my emotional, mental wellness? That became so clear during the pandemic, okay? When the research would tell you that church-attending people were just as anxious, just as fearful, just as depressed who those out there. We've not done a good job of taking our faith and applying it into those dimensions of flourishing so that people are able to find discipleship, using that word, in their relationships, in their emotional mental wellness, in their calling, where God's planted them like he's planted you. And we've got to quit trying to live our faith inside of four walls somewhere. So thank you for that affirmation, brother. Appreciate that.
You got another question, somebody?
I'm going to speak one more thing, and then I'll give it back to you, to my friend that talks about pop psychology. Let me give you just a quick story. When we first, there's a whole bunch of us that were licensed, and then we're over here, we're ordained, and it's kind of a bizarre mix. And my wife says overly educated beyond usefulness. That's part of what that means. So when we first published Intimate Encounters, that workbook, okay, of how to empty your emotional cup, how to heal every one of those emotions with Bible verses, we got such flack from the professional community that we were giving away the counseling secrets, and people would not pay counselors to go get healed. Okay? And the book publisher quit publishing the book. Okay? By that time, they'd sold a magic 20,000 or whatever. So we've said, give it back. We're going to give away the secrets, because the secrets are not ours. The secrets are God's. It's now, I think, had about 560,000 copies of it printed around the world. Okay? So
One thing he taught
God's
me,
word works.
One thing he taught me in this process, from academic and in my anger and as I read Scripture, he taught me how Scripture is emotionally impactful, which I'm going, yeah, right, you know. So write this down, 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 3 through 7. And 10 times in there, I think it's 10 times, in the New American Standard, he says the word comfort. It's 10 times. Read it and soak it for a week and see how it reaches out to lost people, Christian people alike. And there's the way he's done it. So God is the God of all comfort, who comforts our souls. And that is a big need in my own life. Laura has a question. Go ahead, Laura.
No, one of the things that we did was we went through this 16-week course called Intimate Encounters, where you're with non-professionals, not psychologists. And the thing that struck me over the years was how much healing each of us brought to the person sitting in the chair that was discussing their angiogram. What do we call that? Not angiogram.
Genogram. Genogram.
It's just painful as an angiogram. But those things shocked me, that I could not receive comfort necessarily from my husband or a counselor because I was paying them to, you know.
Sure.
But when these people sat around and it dawned on them where my hurt was and could say it to me, all I'm saying is what you've given us is the power to heal one another. And all of us have so many problems. There's just not enough counselors. Yeah. So we are the ones. Okay, so
Yeah, beautiful story, and that's part of what that Bible verse is talking about. He comforts us, but it's for a purpose, that we might comfort one another.
Yes.
Okay? Comfort does not live in a counselor's office. Okay? Comfort is in his people. Okay? And he wants to turn us loose. So, great affirmation of that.
All
Great
right.
to be with you, my friend.
That's great. This is Dr. David Ferguson. And 1 minute before you applaud, I said there's a CBMC Informational Book Center over there. Dr. David Arnott is here. Only brought one of his books. It's $10. A great book, great speaker on biblical economic policy. Greg Sorber's book is there. There's only one leader by Bruce Wett and Bob Williamson, a personal friend of mine who's a bona fide sociopath, kicked out of the Air Force, became a serial entrepreneur, millionaire guy. Wonderful story. Dr. Ferguson will be over there with Zoe. Zoe, raise your hand if you'll be dismissed,
Yeah.
Dr. Ferguson.
And I think we got 3 books back there we want to give away to you.
Now, explain this why you're giving it away. Come on, you got one more principle you said why you give away these books.
A business as unusual organization is led by a giving first person because we have a giving first God. We don't go anywhere without giving stuff away.
There it
Good
is.
to be with you, man.
All right, November 17th is our next Confluence. Get it up there. Give him a round of applause and talk to him or Teresa. Thank you so much, Dr. Ferguson. Y'all come back, okay? Thank you.